Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books, Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 12 regular volumes and 7 regional volumes currently available, all of them at Amazon in ebook, Kindle, and paperback, and 6 of the 7, actually 5 of the 7, and 2 yet to be finished are available in audiobook. So go out there, grab a copy or 2, support what we're doing. And the regional books, if you're unfamiliar with them, I organized all of the 12 books by region so I could dial in the area you live and find out what's happening. Canada is divided into the provinces. So have at it, folks. And now my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. I'm back from Utah after a little snowboarding trip.
Uh-huh.
And we had good snow, but on a couple of the days, it was really cold.
Oh, yeah? Like negative?
0 Fahrenheit with no wind chill.
Wow. Wow.
Very cold. Very cold.
Yeah, that is good. Were you able to hang in there with that, or you call it off?
No, we hung in there.
Wow, man. Well, you must have some serious outerwear to hang around at 0.
Yeah, definitely. You can't do it with the amateur gloves and stuff.
Yeah. What about on the face? You cover your face?
Yeah, I wear one of these things. It's called a gaiter. It's like, you pull it over your neck and pull it up over your nose.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I wear a helmet and goggles. Mm-hmm. And the goggles really help,
Yeah, you have to, because the wind chill and everything would get you.
Oh, yeah. And it was blowing snow. And the one day we had to knock off early because it was snowing really hard and it was blowing like 40 miles an hour.
Oh, my God.
And the snow would hit you like in the face around your goggles and stuff, and it would hurt. Like,
wow.
It was like, all right, forget it.
Yeah, you want to talk about a whiteout.
Oh, yeah, very much.
Wow.
A very flat light, they call it, where you're coming down the mountain and it's hard to see the ridges and stuff like that because everything just looks white, even with your polarized goggles on,
Yeah.
all that technology.
Yeah, and that's how you get hurt,
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So that's incredible, man. Well, I'm glad you went out there and had a good time.
Yeah, it was all good. It was good to get out there, and it's good. For me, Bill, in North Carolina, we don't get to see the heavy snow much, so it's kind of fun. And then, to leave it behind is fun, too.
Yeah. No snow blower, no shovels.
Back here in North Carolina, and the daffodils are starting to come up in my backyard, believe it or not.
No kidding.
Probably a little early, but a couple of them are up.
Maybe a harbinger of an early spring.
I don't know what it is, but I'll take it.
Yeah, it just gives you hope, those little things,
No doubt about it. So, so we're out in Utah. Of course, Utah is a bit of a hotbed for Bigfoot, as you know, or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And we were skiing right on the edge of what's called the Wasatch Range, not to be confused with the Sasquatch Range. Sounds a little bit like Sasquatch. But it's Wasatch. And so that made me start to think about, this week, let's look at Utah and what's going on. And I sent you that video, which we'll post on our website, folks, under this episode, episode 288 at BigfootTerrorinthewoods.com. But before we get to that, Bill, I sent you a text with a picture because I thought I was seeing things when I first saw somebody with one of these coats. So you got that text?
I did, man. The polar bear coat.
Oh, man, folks. I don't know if any of you have seen these. I hadn't seen them before, but it's basically this huge coat that you put on over all of your other gear, and it looks like a polar bear skin. And it's got a head on it with a mouth and eyes and ears, and that goes on. It's part of the coat, but it basically is like a huge hood that goes up over your helmet and that on your head. And then the hands are like bear paws that your hands fit into with big claws on them and everything.
Like a Wolverine.
I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. So I first see that, right? And now it's snowing out like crazy. And I see this guy walking along in the distance carrying his board, like at one of the mid-mountain lodges. And I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, it's a polar bear.
What am I looking
How could
at?
it be a polar bear? And the guy gets closer, and I'm like, all right, that is the coolest coat. And then a couple hours later, I see a guy with a wolf coat from the same manufacturer.
Wow.
Like a gray wolf, but it looked like a dog man because, the guy's like 6'2", and he's got this huge wolf coat on.
Wow. What do you think something like that retails for?
I looked them up. It's like $450, $500.
No way.
Yeah.
But they can't be real.
Oh, no, it's not real. It's fake.
Oh.
But it looks as real as you could get.
Yeah, I mean, well, somebody's going out of their way to present something really unique. And there's a lot of people out there that would pick it up, if nothing else, conversation piece, a little bit of a gag,
Well, a lot of people skiing too, especially out west.
Yeah.
Are wearing funky stuff, whether it's like an 80s era neon jumpsuit, with zebra stripes on it just to be goofy, or they're, they're wearing hockey jerseys, or a wolf suit.
And me, Kev, I always like to snowboard in a bikini.
Yeah, wow. That's why you don't go too much.
I'll get thrown off the mountain as well.
You will see people out there, Bill, spring skiing with a bathing suit on.
No, I know that. That's why I made that joke.
Yeah.
I've seen that stuff in years gone by, and I was like,
not this time of the year, but
yeah. I'm like, you got to be out of your mind. But I guess when the snow is still there and you get bright sunshine and maybe a 60-something degree day, you might take a chance. You know?
Absolutely.
Wow, crazy, man. So what'd you find out about Utah?
Yeah, so I was looking around for different sightings, and I came across this video from January 31st of last year, 2024, so a little over a year ago, of a Bigfoot captured basically running along on the side of the range in Wasatch, snow-covered range, so just a tree here or there, and he's running up on an angle towards the crest of the range, but about midway up the range. So, but he's moving right along. It's a blue sky, white snow. He's way off in the distance, but they zoom in on him. You can't see that it's a Bigfoot, but the way that the thing is moving at the speed and the angle that it's moving up the side of this snow-packed range is, superhuman at best.
Yeah, and I saw the video, Kev, and exactly, there is no, if a human being was on that slope, you would be trudging along, especially having achieved that altitude or height. You would be trudging along step by step, taking very frequent breaks, and just kind of slowly traversing. That thing stopped at one point by what appeared to be a little tree. It looked like it took a brief break and then started getting a giddy-up on. And I don't know what kind of distance it covered, but hundreds and hundreds of yards relatively easily and quickly.
Exactly. Moving right along, again, upward, not downward. And, they said in the notes that there was 90 inches of snow, which makes sense. I mean, it looks like, it's an avalanche-ready ridge. Not too many trees, and the few trees you can see are covered in snow.
Right, and who knows how much of the actual tree was under the snow.
Exactly, a lot of the actual tree, I'm sure. So this thing's cruising along. The only thing I can think, Bill, is that somehow it is a person and they sped it up, but in all of the comments and stuff, nobody talks about that,
Yeah, I don't, Kev, with some of these things, I think the hoax is more difficult than first of all, I think at the distance they were shooting that without any zoom, it had to be a couple of 2 or 3 miles away from their position.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 2 miles away.
Yeah, and a human would have been a speck. This thing obviously had some size to it, and it was casting a very consistent linear shadow off the back of it because of the way the sun was hitting it.
I know, I noticed that too. Like the shadow was equivalent to the trees.
Right.
The same angle and stuff like that. And it was definitely, for those of us in the audience, those of the folks in the audience that haven't seen it yet, it was definitely going along upright. Like it wasn't a bear or a big grizzly or something. It wasn't
bipedal. I buy into on this piece of footage that the hoax notion would be such a pain in the butt to achieve, and a guy to get up there on foot.
Yeah.
However they got up there, it's just not worth it, man.
Yeah.
To me, it's just not worth it. And then the follow-up, Kim, go ahead, about the helicopter guy.
Yeah. So, and by the way, this video goes on for probably a minute or so. So it's a good, maybe longer. And then they have the stabilized version of it. And basically what they were doing is they saw it through a spotting scope, right? And a spotting telescope that they had. So and they put the camera up to the spotting scope. So it's shaky and all. And then they did a version that was image stabilized of the same thing. So you really see it pretty clearly there. And then they had a helicopter go up to the ridge later on. And you do see, definite footprints going across the top of the ridge. Now, you can't tell what kind of footprints they are. They look like some type of footprint in deep snow, I mean, it's not a bear. It's something that was walking upright, a biped. Could be a Bigfoot, could have been a human, because you can't tell how far apart the steps are.
No, but they were in line.
Right in line, yeah.
Right, one in front of the other,
Exactly.
That weird balance beam gymnast walk.
Yeah, and it was right along the spine.
Yeah, incredible.
Of this range.
Yeah, now they said in the video that the helicopter pilot had seen what they posted and decided to go up there for himself. And you could hear the chopper running while he's hovering there and getting a film of it.
Yeah, he's pretty low. He's pretty low compared to the footprints.
Yeah, very low.
Probably 20 feet above him or something.
Yeah, not far at all.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's super cool. And, folks out there, if you live around the Wasatch, I'm sure some of you do, reach out to us at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Contact us and tell us about your sightings there. And by the way, you have a beautiful area out there. I was in the Park City area of Utah, and folks, if you live out there, wow, it's spectacular. What a nice area.
Yeah, and there's got to be a lot of activity out there unreported.
No doubt.
I've always stood my ground on that. For everyone you hear about, there's probably 500 or 1,000 you'll never know.
No, and it's super rural out there.
Yeah. Interesting, man. The Wasatch Range.
Exactly.
What is that place like in the summertime?
It's supposed to be beautiful. I've never been out there, but it's on my bucket list to go out there in the summertime. Check it out.
I mean, like the area you were snowboarding, is that a grass-covered slope?
I guess so. Grass and rocks. The mountains out there, of course, they're the Rocky Mountains. And out in Utah, you start to see why they're called that, because you do see a lot of rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt
Everything's
about
snow
it.
covered now, right? But on some of the mountains that are in the direct sunlight, you can see they're basically rock mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, man. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
super cool. But it's supposed to be beautiful in the summertime. They have a lot of golf out there, anything to get people out, and mountain biking, where you can ride on the lift, bring your bike up on the lift, and then come down some of the trails on your bike.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, then. Excellent, Kim. Now, this is the only account that I have from the Ukraine.
Ooh.
And obviously, prior to the murderous war that is going on there now, and by the way, folks, I was a little bit peeved, Kev, when I was putting together the regional books, because I have a number of accounts from other countries that there just wasn't enough of to make a book like foreign accounts or something like that. I doubt anytime soon or ever I will be able to do that, but this one came from the Ukraine, and this remarkable sighting was told to me by Val Strentskiev, who's a Ukraine rancher of dairy cows and horses.
Wow.
And this is what Val had to say about his sighting. In the early winter of 2014, I had taken a run early in the day. He's talking about in a vehicle, not jogging. Basically to inspect some of the fencing in our pastures and to relax. The day was pristine, having just had about 5 inches of snow overnight. My family's farm, or ranch, if you will, was generational, having been owned and cared for by many of my ancestors going back to the 1800s. The setting that I want to present to you is the reason why I sent you the photograph. The photo, however, was just taken last week, while sitting in the exact same spot where the sighting had occurred years earlier. The snow had ceased about 5 a.m., and after having finished my morning meal, I set out in my truck heading for the back of our land. The property consists of 675 acres, most of which is rolling pasture land divided into individual grazing pastures by what you Americans would call split rail fences. I had stopped my truck to smoke and was facing forward, seeing what you are looking at in the photo, Bill. Only now it was covered in a fresh blanket of snow. As you can see, there are about 7 or 8 individual pastures rolling up the slope of the mountainside, which is abutted by pine forest. I had been sitting in the truck for about 20 minutes, with a foggy kind of morning mist flowing down over the side of the mountain, wafting over now what he's calling a mountain, folks, is like a rolling hill. Wafting over the trees and down into the pastures. I distinctly remember that the sun was very bright that morning, and this mist or fog was beginning to dissipate to the point where there were individual little clouds, if you will, floating down and through the pastures. At this point, I was packing my pipe when out of the corner of my eye, I believed I saw a tall, dark figure enter the forest about 200 meters from me. As you look at the picture, the lane or passage that is visible on the left-hand side in the distance, which somewhat divides the forest, is where I saw the creature. So I want you to visualize almost like a wide fire lane between two segments of forest. So he's sitting in his truck. He sees this thing coming down this grassy lane and ducking into the trees. So let's continue here. I distinctly remember that the sun was very bright that morning. Oh, I read that part already. As you look at the picture, the lane or passage that's visible on the left-hand side in the distance, which somewhat divides the forest, is where I saw the creature first. What I saw would be similar to you seeing the last second view of someone ducking into a doorway. That's how quick it was. The truck I was driving was actually Soviet Army surplus, a flatbed with a stake body and painted in what would be considered a form of camouflage. The road leading in was located at a relatively high point, with the highest of the pastures sitting below my position. Now, I had been in this forest for many times before, where whatever this was had gone into. It is extremely dark, even in the brightest of sunshine, due to the extreme size and dimensions of the trees which form it. I began to concentrate my gaze into the trees, hoping to gain sight of this being, just as one of these drifting clouds overtook me and my truck, completely obscuring my view. In my mind, I was growing anxious as to what I should do. In other words, to get out of the truck or wait for the cloud to move by me. Having chosen the latter, about 3 minutes went by. Cloud had passed fully by me. I was now once again looking at the trees. If whatever I saw was to pass directly through this area, it would have to emerge from the woods, virtually immediately confronted by the fence line next to the trees. So I waited and watched. A moment later, walking out of the trees on 2 legs, appeared what we call a Yeti, and as you call it, a Bigfoot. It took 2 steps out of the trees and extended its arm to the top rail of the fence. As its arm extended, it was already lifting its leg to clear the rail when it tumbled forward into the snow. What I had missed in those seconds and had only realized later upon further inspection was that the rail had collapsed when the creature leaned on it, causing the beast to fall forward headlong into the snow. I remember it flipped around a couple of times as though it had been hurt, but then it quickly got to its feet, throwing both of its arms into the air as we would, saying something like, "What the heck?" or whatever. The creature kept walking across this particular pasture, approaching yet another fence, and this time it stepped right over it with no use of its hands. The top rails, by the way, were all placed at about 2 meters, so this was no ordinary man stepping over it. Having cleared the fence, I now realized the Yeti would be re-entering the adjoining forest in a matter of seconds, disappearing from view. So I decided to beep the horn and see what would happen, and so I did. As the horn sounded into this valley, I saw the creature lurch to its right-hand side, looking directly at me, and it froze. At that moment, I felt as though our eyes were meeting, even though it was perhaps 150 meters or better away. It stood perfectly still for about 30 seconds. It then proceeded to turn away, and with several long bounds cleared the field and the remaining fence and was gone. I sat there for about an hour, trying to gather my thoughts about what I had just seen, and decided to leave and come back later to inspect the area where it had traversed. Later that afternoon, my 2 sons and I returned to the scene, both of which were more than a bit excited to see what, if anything, could be found. We were all armed as we exited the truck, and began the descent into the pastures. We approached a fence where the rail had given away, and upon our close inspection, the timber was not at all decayed, but rather had been snapped by the force or weight of this beast. The wood was firm and strong, with none of our group being able to damage it in any way. There were huge impressions in the snow which were laid down in a straight and uniform pattern, and appeared to be like that of a deformed human foot. I say this because the toes were spread out in a weird way as compared to, say, our own. Albeit, this creature was in no way limping or walking in a way indicating it was lame. We then walked back to where I had first seen it entering the trees, where we were confronted with another long line of visible tracks, coming down through the break from, say, an elevation of about 400 meters, which was also the forest. Now, following its path through the trees and back to the fence, we came upon several branches which had been snapped off freshly at a height of about 3 meters, evidently having been done by this same creature. Emerging now from the woods, we walked down to the point where we had been staring each other down before the Yeti left my view. Now, standing where it had stepped over the fence before re-entering the forest, I stood there dumbfounded. The beast had to have been a meter and a half at the crotch to clear the fence in a stride, which left me thinking it had to have been 3 meters or so in height. Its color was brown, with what appeared to be reddish undertones, and appeared to be some 300 to 400 kilos in weight. The body was thick and uniform in its dimensions, and appeared to be sturdily constructed, with its arms hanging down nearly to the knees. My sons and I measured the distance between some of its steps, being greater than 2.5 meters, and those measured when it had begun its hasty exit, closer to 4 meters in length, so it lengthened as it started to boogie. Since that day, we have seen nothing more of the beast, having looked for it in earnest. There was never a mention of this creature in my family, from the time they had settled here to this. Neither had any of the neighboring property's owners commented on such a thing having been seen. There you have it, Kev.
Wild, Bill.
The Yeti.
You know, it's interesting, this Yeti thing, that, you know, I didn't, you knew what I was going to talk about because I wanted you to look at the video, but I didn't know what you were going to talk about. And on my flight out to Utah a week or so ago, I was watching this documentary, which, folks, if you like a good documentary on a mountain climbing background, it's called Mountain Queen. And it's about this woman. Her name is Lakpa Sherpa, and she's a Sherpa. And she summited Everest 10 times.
Wow.
So she's the only woman to summit Everest once and live to talk about it. She ended up doing it 10 times. And, you know, she's a Sherpa, so she's born and raised there around the base of the mountain. And she tells stories about her grandmother. She used to tell her grandmother when she was a small child that she wanted to climb up Everest. I forget the name that they call it, but it's not Everest, you know. And she'd say, "Why do you want to climb?" And she said, "I want to see what's on the other side of the mountain. I want to see. I want to look to the other side." And her grandmother said something like, "Well, there's Yetis on the other side of the mountain, and if you go up there, they'll pick you up and take you away."
Wow. Yetis on the other side of the mountain.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and the fact that she used the word Yeti being a grandmother.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
obviously long before we were talking about Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest.
Exactly.
All of this stuff adds to the brew, if you will, similar to the Native American stories and many other things, that this beast in its various forms has been being seen for a long time. And I think it's just time to face the music and realize that, there are things that we as human beings just will never fully understand or comprehend,
100%.
So, very interesting, kid. Very
Super
interesting.
cool account, though, from somebody in the Ukraine. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you got to think, I can't help myself. What do you think this poor guy's property looks like now?
Who knows?
Yeah, it's kind of sad because that was a beautiful country. And, when the fighting stops over there, and I believe it will, can you imagine a cleanup of landmines, unexploded ordnance? It's going to take them a long time to...
If ever. I mean, look at the stuff in World War II. They still come across landmines, unexploded shells,
It's going to take you...
They find them in London, Bill, when they're doing construction. It's crazy.
It is... Excuse me. It is incredible.
Yeah, unexploded bombs, dropped by the Luftwaffe.
Right, and even people diving find bombs.
Oh, yeah.
Laying on the bottom that just, what the heck? Big, belly busters or whatever you want to call them. Incredible, man. So there you have it. The Ukraine Yeti and that cool footage from the Wasatch Mountain Range. Another thing that was interesting, too, Kevin, that footage, you could see there's some type of weather station up on the ridge.
Yeah, antennas, weather station, something. Yeah.
Yeah, above, could be military for all we know, but some type of radar, electronic surveillance, who knows what's in that building.
Sure.
But you could tell that we don't know how big that building was or the arrays that were there, but it was high above the Bigfoot. And I think that creature had to be extraordinarily tall and large, even for it to appear the way it did in the footage.
Yeah, it could be. It's hard because, we don't have any scale or any distance, but again, you can definitely tell that it's upright, and it looks like it's a couple of miles away, so that tells you it's pretty big.
Yeah. Now I give that picture a thumbs up. What do you think, Kevin?
I think it's real. The shadowing is really interesting, and it just seems legit. I don't know, but you never know. Like, people can trick you.
Yeah, no, I know, and there's plenty of people out there in this day and age that are making their best efforts to trick.
Oh, yeah. Now, I don't think it's somebody in a Bigfoot suit cruising up the mountain. It's not possible to cruise up the mountain like that.
No,
as a human.
No, it's just too much.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, there's no ski poles in its hands.
No.
There's no skis on its feet.
No, and you never get up that way with skis on your feet, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Not at that speed going vertical. No.
Yeah, no, you just... I had a hot shot that I used to work with. He left the hospital. He was a self-proclaimed, expert hotshot skier. Well, we didn't see him for a little while once, and it turned out he broke his back hot-shotting down some mountain and was out for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of condition he's in now, but, once you break your back, I guess you got to watch yourself a little bit more,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to be careful. As you know, Bill, I tore my shoulder up about 5 years ago snowboarding, and I'm a little slower after that.
Yeah, no, I
Even though my
remember
shoulder
what.
works fine, it's like I'm a little slower. And that was in the springtime on spring skiing, which is beautiful because it's warm, but it also gets icy in the afternoon because it gets warm during the day, right? When the temperature drops, everything freezes. And the combination of you being tired at the end of the day and it being icy, that was a bad combination for me.
Yeah, I remember, Kev. You went through quite an ordeal to rebound from that.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is I'm 100% back. The bad
Yeah.
news is it took me a year, which is what the surgeon said. He said,
Right.
yeah, we're going to do the surgery. It's not that bad, the surgery process. But he said, you're going to do heavy duty physical therapy for a year. And if you do everything they tell you to do, you'll be 100%. He was right, but it was a lot of PT.
Yeah, a year of PT.
Yeah.
Incredible, man. Well, that's it, Kev. What do we have in our listener mail segment?
Yeah, we get a couple of good ones here. On the lighter side, Mark writes in from Goodyear, Arizona. I know where that is, Mark. Used to live out that way for a little bit. And he says, hey, guys, Mark from Goodyear, Arizona. After hearing about Captain Caveman in one of your recent broadcasts, it reminded me of the Saturday TV show Bigfoot and the Wild Boy. Do you remember
Bigfoot and
it?
the Wild Boy?
All right, so I had the same reaction, Bill. I do not remember it.
I do not either.
Yeah, so I says, do you remember it? So the answer is, Mark, no, we don't apparently, but we're definitely going to check it out. And he says, keep up the good work.
Bigfoot and the Wild Boy.
Exactly.
Oh, my God. You see what we stir up with this audience, man? I just go off, and when you going off with the caveman, and then I looked it up. I had to see it, and you were right. It was that hair-covered thing with big feet, the club.
Yep.
And, there was a lot of weird cartoons back then.
Well, this Bigfoot and the Wild Boy, I looked it up, and it's live action. It's a boy and somebody in a Bigfoot costume, and I think it's put on. You remember Sid and Marty Krofft? Like they would do a lot of these.
Yeah, didn't they do the banana splits?
I was going to say, I think they did the banana split.
Yeah, and what else? There was a Treasure Island or something?
Maybe.
Yeah, there was that crazy guy. He was like a pirate, and the two good people always battling with him, or some crazy thing. I think that was all Sid and Marty Krofft or whatever.
I think so. I remember seeing the name, like produced by Sid and Marty Krofft,
Yeah. So, interesting, huh?
Good stuff.
So what else? Yeah, what else?
All right, and then we have next one comes in, and the subject is talking about bicycles.
Oh.
And this gentleman, Joseph, I'll call him. He gives his full name and rank, but no offense, Joseph, I don't want to say that because I want to protect your privacy. He says, I've listened to every episode you ever made. I want to tell you something. You are so right about being safe on a bicycle, which, of course, Bill, I was talking about that a couple episodes ago.
Right. You had mentioned the pedal fell off and you went ass over tea kettle.
Yeah, and I was saying, well, how important it is to wear a helmet. Mm-hmm. And he said, I had a bad injury to my knee, and therapy, I had to ride a bicycle. So I would ride from Louisville to Memphis or Nashville or even Evansville, Indiana. He says, I do live right next to land between the lakes, and I own almost 1,000 acres myself. I'm sorry that you had a bicycle pedal fall off, and this really can happen. It'll make quite a wreck. My point being that it's always important to wear helmets on bicycles. He says, I also own a lot of property in northern Wisconsin and Chiquamenon National Forest. And this is why I work as a biologist, and we have Sasquatch there for sure.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Coming from the horse's mouth. And by the way, Joseph, so we know you're a listener to the podcast. If you don't mind, forward me your phone number, and I'll give you a call. I'd like to have a conversation with you about what sort of interesting things you're having up north go on that makes you say we definitely have Sasquatch up there. So I'd like to have a conversation with you if you don't mind.
Great idea, Bill.
Yep,
I think he's got some good stuff that he's seen up that
I bet
way.
you he does.
Yeah.
I like the confidence.
Yeah. And our last email comes in from our friend, Philip.
Ah, yes.
And the subject is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Bill, if you know it, El Cacao. So it's Cacuo. And Philip writes, WJ and KJ, this is a legend of the boogeyman in South America. Check it out. Thought you guys might like it.
And we will check it out, Phil.
Definitely. I'm always looking for new ideas. We are 288 episodes into this journey, and it's always, good to get ideas for cryptids in the news and other oddities.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, Kev, tell them how they can get in touch with us.
Yeah, go to our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, and click on the link, contact us, and fill out the email. And we read all of the emails. And my brother will often call you back if you leave your phone number and talk to you live.
Yeah. And remember, folks, if you've seen something, say something. Be a contributor to what it is we're doing here. Get it off your chest. Get it out into the open. Let the rest of the people listening hear what you have to say and what you've experienced. And by the way, if you haven't been checking out the newest episodes of Expedition Bigfoot, I would highly recommend that you tune them in because these guys are doing some excellent work. Yes, I'm sure there is dramatization. Kevin and I were kidding today how there always seems to be a cliff that the one dude needs to rappel down on rope lines.
He wants to show off his skills.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's okay. But aside from that, the actual scientific effort they're putting forth, to me, is very credible. And I think they're doing a heck of a job. And I highly recommend it to anybody out there to watch. And, by the way, if you should find yourself hiking to the Wasatch Mountain Range in the spring or summer, or hiking or walking anywhere else for that matter, you best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. The Ukrainian rancher and his 2 sons didn't they? Sleep tight.